Hi, my name is Carson Gruber, and today we're going to be talking about Heidegger, a how do I do it? Existent existentialist philosopher, and he was also a Nazi. We are going to be doing this in a lovely, streamlined fashion because the last time I recorded this, apparently, I don't know, my computer had a brain fart. So, Heidegger was born on September 26th, 1889, in the city of Maskirch, which was part of the German Empire, and he was raised a Catholic. He eventually moved to a city called Friedberg, got into philosophy by reading a book, and he began to teach there after he got his doctorate. And eventually, Heidegger became a Protestant after studying Calvin, Luther, and apparently some other people. And he married a woman named Elfriede Petrie, which I completely butchered. It is actually pronounced Elfriede Petrie. Mm, This was not Heidegger's only romantic relationship. He also had a affair with one of his students. Her name was Hannah Arendt, and she eventually went on to actually write a lot about anti Semitism and totalitarianism because she was a Jew who wound up fleeing from Nazi Germany. She fled from Nazi Germany to Paris, and then she fled from Paris to America. The primary text we have from Heidegger is something called Being and Time, and what that looks like, we will go over in a minute. And Heidegger lived from basically the late 19th century all the way through, I'd say about three-fourths of the way through the Cold War. So he lived through both World War One and World War Two. He became the rector of the University of Friedberg and aided in its Nazification after Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany in 1933. Heidegger became rector in April, and he became a Nazi officially in May. And then, after a year, in April 1934, Heidegger stepped down. He wrote some things after World War II, and eventually he died in 1976 on May 26th. Eventually, after he died, Germany was reunified because it had been split up after World War II. This marks the start of the modern German state. And in 2014, some of Heidegger's black notebooks were found, which detailed the years 1931 to 1941, and they contained a lot of anti Semitic thought with like some philosophy on top of it. So the main primary difference between Christianity and existentialism is that existentialism is kind of similar to nihilism, but it's like one step up from nihilism. It is about basically if the universe has no meaning, then we need to make the meaning for ourselves, which is also what Nietzsche communicated through his idea of the will to power. This is a sort of optimistic nihilism. So, sure, the universe may one day end in heat death and I won't matter, but who says I can't have fun and help further humanity's journey to the stars now? So, and we have the comparison box, and we also have a quote by a person. This person, Robert Solomon, wrote a book called From Hegel to Existentialism, 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 Existentialism. I hope I'm saying that right. So, Being in Time was actually meant to be the first of two books, and it was meant to have three sections, but only two got published. And this was because eventually Heidegger's opinion regarding something that he had termed Dasein changed. So the first section of the book covers some interesting stuff, and the second section of the book covers some more interesting stuff. The third section of the book, if it had been written, would have covered more things related to how Heidegger was arguing against some stuff from Descartes. And had the second book been written, it would have been called something like Time and Being, and it would have contained more of Heidegger attacking other philosophers. So then we get to Heidegger and the Nazis. I explained most of this already, but basically, Heidegger came, joined the Nazi party because it sort of went with his philosophy, and he aided in the Nazification of the university that he worked at. But a key difference between Heidegger and the other Nazis is that he believed that Germans were a superior people rather than a superior race. He thought that German culture was going to somehow enlighten the rest of the world, not through conquest, but something like a evil version of Matthew 5:13 through 14. He thought that Germany was going to be the salt and light of the world rather than the church, which is very it's from a Christian perspective, it's quite dark. And when questioned about his involvement with the Nazis, Heidegger would quoted a French poet named Paul Valéry. He who thinks greatly must err greatly. So, the first full piece of work, probably the first full piece of work Heidegger wrote after the Second World War, was The Question Concerning Technology, where Heidegger basically says, regardless of who won the war, technology was going to go crazy. Heidegger is not vehemently opposed to technology, but he's not vehemently for it either. He comments a bit how, like, this hydroelectric dam manipulates the Rhine River off its natural course, and that. Okay, so at this point, don't mind the additional background noise. At this point, for some reason, the audio just sort of gave out. Though I did record what I was wanting to say. Basically, Heidegger um, was not completely against technology, but he wasn't entirely for it either. It's a tool, basically. In summary, Heidegger was a philosopher from the 20th century who lived through the World Wars and part of the Cold War. He died in 1976. He was a Nazi and he wrote a book called Being and Time. And you will be able to see the rest of the PowerPoint as it just sort of goes on. It should stop at about the 15, 13, 15-ish minute mark. Um, this is rather unfortunate. I am just trying to make do with what I have. So, next time we'll be looking at Bonhoeffer, who fought against the Nazis. And that's all. Goodbye.